Hey everyone, Sheldon here, and last Wednesday I made a 1,000 subscriber milestone video for this channel, which is absolutely amazing, and I also asked you guys to ask me questions for this upcoming Q&A video. So let's get started. Here's what you guys asked. Alright, so first of all, these are not in any specific order, I'm just reading them off how they were positioned on here. So the first question is from Diamond Hunter. It says, "Bruh, how do you have so much patience for papercraft?" That's actually a really good question. I have this thing where if I start something, I feel like I really absolutely have to finish it. So that's just kind of how it is. I don't necessarily consider papercrafting to be a chore because it's a hobby that I do. And a couple other people actually do that. I actually consider it to be a lot of fun to papercraft, you know, especially when the piece that you're working on actually starts to work. That is a little bit more motivation to keep working on it. And of course all of the motivation from you guys, you know, it really actually does help. It makes me continue working on something until it's completely finished. The next question is from Tony Howard Stark. It says, can you start doing Clash of Clans tutorials? I've never actually played Clash of Clans, you know, but I mean, anything's possible, maybe sometime in the future. I do enjoy playing video games once in a while, you know. I mean, I don't know if you guys can tell or not. The next question is from Assassin2584. Congratulations, I remember when you had 78. Yeah, me too. So what gives you the time and patience to be able to sit through a long papercraft project? This is kind of similar to the first question in a way. You know, I don't necessarily consider it to be a chore, you know. I think it's a lot of fun to build something from nothing, pretty much, you know. And it's recycling, so it's pretty good for the environment, too. Okay, so the next question is from Asian Powwow 1. That's a good name. Congratulations on 1,000 subscribers. I don't even have 100 yet, lol. You'll get there. I know you will. But anyway, what else do you do besides papercrafting and drawing/art? Any other passions? Well, yeah, actually, I do enjoy papercrafting and art, which you guys probably know, but I've taken a couple of machining classes back in high school where you would use the lathe and, you know, take off thousandths of an inch and stuff, which has definitely helped with the hobbies that I'm doing nowadays. And, you know, also the milling machine and stuff like that. I really enjoy building things out of, you know, metal as well, but unfortunately I don't really have just a milling machine laying around in my house, so. Alright, so the next question is from Satron or Satron. I'm not really sure how you pronounce that. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong. But it says, how did it happen that you started papercrafting? Why not other materials like wood or metal? By the way, nice vids and I wish you the best for your future. Well, thank you. I started papercrafting probably when I was 12 or 13 or something like that, you know, making like little paper tech decks, you know, those miniature skateboards. I don't know, I thought it was really cool at the time, but... And why do I not use other materials like wood or metal? I don't really use wood because when you use wood, you're stuck with a certain thickness of material, you know. If you use plywood or something, it's like, you know, 1 millimeter thick or 2 millimeters or even 3. But you're stuck with those dimensions and that's it. But with paper, I'm able to stack it up to whichever thickness I like, or peel off some material if I want it to be a little bit more thin, which I think is pretty handy. And I would use metal a little bit more often if I had proper tools for working with metal. The next question is from Slenderman Alive or A-Live. It looks like, you know, it's a space between, so I don't know, but it says, if you do a tutorial on M1911 pistol, I am 1,000 subscriber. Well, for the M1911 pistol, I might be able to do some sort of tutorial on that later on. I am actually, reconstructing some of the parts for it actually, because I started them a long time ago, and my paper crafting skill, at least to me, I feel like it's gotten a little bit better within the past couple of years. So I feel like I'm able to build parts a little bit better than I would have been able to back then. So I might be able to take you guys on a little bit more of a step-by-step process of how those parts are made. The next question is from Andre Chen. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing that right, but I don't know. But it says, loved your hidden blade build. Thank you. By the way, have you ever thought of doing your best builds in wood or metal? Yes, I have thought about that before. I would probably end up doing a finished product out of metal, because metal I'm a little bit more familiar working with than wood, just because of those machining classes and stuff like that. And also, wood, if it gets wet and then dries, it can contract a little bit, and it's a really porous surface, so you need to coat everything in super glue and all that stuff. But, it's a long process, but then again, so is paper crafting. The next question is from Blazefire Gaming. Congrats, and my question is, what motivates you to do this? Well, I was paper crafting before I ever started this YouTube channel, so, I've always been motivated to do it because it's one of my hobbies, and I always loved to see the finished result and, the finished outcome that actually works. And even if it doesn't work, you still learn stuff and you gain more experience. But since I started this YouTube channel, I've gotten a lot of motivation from you guys, because all of the support I get from you, it really means a lot. It helps me build stuff and figure things out. The next question is from Futuristic Ninja. Hey Sheldon, will you be making the dual action extended hidden blade or a butterfly knife? I will probably end up doing both of those projects eventually. I've been planning a couple things for the future, but I'm not going to say anything right now because I don't want to spoil anything. But yes, you will probably see both of those or something similar to them later in the future. The next question is from Drum Covers for Christ. Congrats! What got you started in papercraft? What are your plans for the future of this channel? I got started in paper crafting, a long time ago when I saw people making wooden miniature skateboard tech deck things. So I wanted to figure out a cheaper alternative, so I took some index cards and glue, and it actually worked. And I said, hey, this is a good material to work with, And then I also saw another video of a guy. He had this long strip of paper and the inside was coated in some sort of adhesive epoxy thing, and he wrapped it around this dowel, like he cranked it and wrapped it around, and it was like a really solid cylinder. I'm like, wow, you could build amazing things with this. And later on I saw a couple other paper crafting channels, and I said, that's just really cool that people can actually do this. The next question is from SSJ Trunks 1234. Are you in school? If so, what are you studying and what plans do you have for the future? Well, I recently just graduated high school actually, so I'm going to be moving on to college, and I plan on going into the mechanical engineering field or film study. And yeah, they're completely different, but they are both things I really like to do. The next question is from Paper Gun Building. How's your 1911 coming? My M1911 is actually still pretty good. The only thing is, like I said, I'm reconstructing certain parts because I feel like my paper crafting skill has gotten a little bit better over the years. And I started those parts a long time ago, and I want to make sure I can polish the inside of everything too. That's my main concern with all of the parts that I built back then, The outside I can get as smooth as I want, but the inside is really hard, even with, you know, small, precise tools. So I'd rather do that at the beginning before I put everything together, but I'll still make it work. The next question is from Jerry5Cinco. Wow, 65 to 1000. Congratulations, Sheldon. Let's aim for 1 plus 10 zeros next. Thank you. So my question is, will you do any tutorials for props about anime like Naruto or Attack on Titan, etc.? Also, are you planning on making things other than paper? Yeah, that's all. I have actually seen segments from both of those shows, and I think some things would be pretty cool to make props, you know? So yeah, maybe later in the future. I think that'd be pretty cool. And also, I might be doing other things that aren't necessarily paper, you know? It depends on how many people would actually be interested in seeing that. I'd be willing to try it, so. The next question is from Jacob Fondi, or Fondi. Sorry if I'm not pronouncing that right. Congratulations on the big 1,000 subs, Sheldon. I have 2 questions. First, how did you find out about hardened paper? And second, do you think you can build the phantom blade and the dual extended hidden blade? So yeah, you know, I found out about hardened paper by just folding it over and, you know, seeing a couple videos like that, you know, like that cylinder one and the crank. I thought that was pretty cool to see it turn into a solid rod. And after a little bit of experimenting and seeing other paper crafters along the way, I've developed certain techniques that work for me, but other people don't necessarily use them. And as for the dual extended blade and phantom blade, I probably will end up doing those eventually, but for the phantom blade I don't think I could make the bow limbs out of paper, because I don't think it could take the flexing of that, as paper isn't necessarily supposed to flex. It's a little bit more solid than, you know, plastic and PVC, so we'd have to see. I'd probably end up using something a little bit more flexible for that part. The next question is from Aleph Ezekiel. I really hope I'm pronouncing that even close to being right, but I'm sorry if I'm not. How is your 1911 going? Are you not going to make any more video on it? Yes, I will be making more videos on it, hopefully pretty soon. Like I said, you know, I'm remaking certain parts because I feel like they have better potential now that I have a little bit more experience than I did, say, 2 years ago. Yeah, you'll be seeing updates on that pretty soon. The next question is from the Everything Show 71. Can you make the Phantom Blade from ACU, or Assassin's Creed Unity? And yeah, I probably will end up doing that eventually, like I said, because I've seen a few other people do it. Alright, so the next question is from Beans and Bacon. How long does hardened paper take to dye fully? Will you be trying the double extension hidden blade? By dye, I'm assuming you mean dry. I would say it probably takes a whole day if you put it underneath a textbook to dry. If you were to just fold a piece of it and just like leave it on the table, it would dry pretty fast, but it would be extremely warped and have a lot of wrinkles in it. But underneath a textbook, it will keep its shape and it will take a little bit longer to dry. And for the second part of your question, yes, I probably will end up making the dual extension hidden blade, because a lot of you actually seem to want to see that. So that is probably going to be something you will see later in the future. The next question is from, I don't know how to pronounce that, this saw Woodward. I'm so sorry if I'm not pronouncing that right. I just don't know. Are you going to be selling your hidden blades? People have asked me that in the past, and usually what I say is I probably will end up doing that. The only thing is, I want to make sure everything is legal, you know, and we all need to know the rules and regulations for our areas and stuff like that. So I want to make sure it's safe and everyone knows everything about that. So you probably will see that. So that's all of the questions that I got on that video. If I didn't get to yours, it's probably because you commented after I filmed this video, because I'm filming this a day in advance. That's usually how I do things like this. Thank you so much, guys, for all of the support and the comments and the questions. I was surprised how well this Q&A video worked out. You know, we can do these a little bit more often if you guys want to, because I think it's pretty beneficial for this channel for people to be able to ask questions, and we can all get to know each other a little bit more. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope your questions have been answered. I'll let you guys know early in advance the next time we do something like this, so if you do have a question, it can be answered, and I hope it all will make sense to you. So thank you so much, guys. It's been an amazing experience so far, like I've said before, so thank you so much. And I'll see you in the next video.